So with that, we've got a short video, and then she's going to come join us on stage.
Kind of Netflix of fashion. For $159, you can rent designer clothes from a virtual closet delivered straight to your door. Got a new lower cost subscription option where for $89, customers can rent 4 items a month and opening physical stores with stylists on hand. Jennifer Hyman is the company's co-founder and CEO.
Everyone in the store is
Time giving Nightline a look inside her company's over 200,000 square foot facility in Secaucus, New Jersey, where you'll find the world's largest dry cleaner and rack after rack of designer clothes.
starting at 5 in the morning. We start to receive customer returns from all over the country. We're figuring out if there's any damage. If there is damage, we can expedite it right over to repairs. Right here is spotting. They're creating a new recipe based on what the stain is to restore the garment to perfect use.
Next stop, a ride through the steam tunnel.
I mean, to me, this is just pure magic. Where everything is getting lined up, ready to go into the steam tunnel. The units are placed on a trolley, and we send the trolley down to the auto bagger. This is the finish line. This has already been packed. This garment bag is now being sent to a truck to go out this evening to get to a customer tomorrow. Wake up in the morning, you put on a pot of coffee, you go on our app, you tap, here's what I want to wear today, and it's delivered to you within half an hour.
The goal for Rent the Runway was to allow women to feel fashionable and on trend without them ever having to buy clothes. So we rent clothes to women, and increasingly over the last year and a half via our subscription, we're renting to them for things like work or their weekends or a date or a night out. And the objective was really to solve that moment when you open up your closet in the morning and you feel that guilt of all those things that you had purchased and you only wore once or twice. We launched a subscription to fashion where women started to use our service every day to get dressed for work. So there was an enormous pressure on our business to greatly multiply the amount of inventory that we had. Not just in terms of quantity of inventory, but in terms of all categories of clothing, because we need to be able to serve you for both the black tie event that you're going to, as well as dress you for your office environment. So we started thinking through how are we actually going to partner with designers in a smarter way to amass the right kind of inventory to serve our customer. You know, when Rent the Runway started, obviously everyone in the audience, you all have closets and you all own clothes. So if you ever were to come to Rent the Runway to rent, whether it was for a one-off occasion or it was for an everyday use, you'd want to rent things that are fundamentally different than what you own. So data was such an important piece of our conversations over the years with designers because we had to actually educate them on what product would work for us as opposed to all of the other retailers that they work with. So, you know, how we are powering this is we're exchanging a massive amount of data with them to show them how their products are being worn. We have now, because we're obviously renting clothing over time, is so important to the manufacturing cycles of designers. So we're able to identify, you know, the reason why your sell-through is high but your loyalty rate might be low is because the quality of your garment isn't right in these few places. So why don't you adjust it in your factories and adjust it in manufacturing? So what's interesting is what started off as a new business for designers, because rental is a new business channel and allows them to attract new customers, it's actually helped them make their original business bigger.
Trust and transparency. And indeed, a lot of our retail partners ask questions how we use the data, how we share data. And here we try to be as transparent as possible. So the retailer knows how we use their data, they know what type of data they can get from us or not. And it's all about building long-lasting, trusted relationships and being transparent. The second piece I would say, which is important, is to have a shared goal. Right? No retailer would share data with us if they don't get a benefit out of it. And in the retail world, it's mainly about driving sales. So this type of collaboration can create more value than a retailer could do alone.
Initially, it was convincing everyone in the industry and everyone in this room that I wasn't crazy. and that women would want to rent clothes, and that fundamentally it wouldn't cannibalize the sales of designer brands. You know, we had data at the point where we launched Rent the Runway that rental in the music industry and in the entertainment industry actually made those businesses bigger. But in the early days, if you went to a designer and said, I want to rent your clothing at the exact same time that it's on the floor in a retail store, they thought that that would destroy their businesses. So we had to overcome that huge hurdle by showing them that we were, first of all, getting a whole new market of people, millions of women, to think about designer brands for the first time. And really what rental does is it reduces the friction around trial. If suddenly you're able to rent something new every single day, it enables you to discover something, and it really makes the industry a lot more about engagement and fun, as opposed to every single interaction being a very friction-filled transaction. So that has been something where we've had to educate the industry over time, and my approach has been transparency, like you were saying, that not everyone is going to feel comfortable working with us right off the bat. So I remember I was at NRF in 2012, and in 2012 I believe we only worked with about 75 brands. And now we work with over 550 brands that really span all categories of the industry. And a lot of that was about showing these brands data over time, even before we started working with them.
The biggest challenge for us is to move beyond the phase where we are only seen as an advertising partner to our retail partners' businesses. As I mentioned before, we really want to be an extension of our retail partners' business. And so working together with the different stakeholders in the retailer's organization to build up these very close type of partnerships will be critical for our future growth in retail.
Well, you guys have kind of hit the next question that I had, and that is, you know, how do you create that win-win scenario? And so you talk about being able to expand their business. Are you guys moving toward any kind of shared economic outcomes that says maybe we got to rethink how we align the P&L and the way in which we're
I wouldn't go so far about aligning the P&L, but to give you an example, our most sophisticated advertisers know very well how much return they want to generate by doing advertising on Facebook. So they challenge us to meet these expectations, basically. So our teams are continuously iterating to shape our solutions in the way to increase the return for our advertising partners. So it's a very productive relationship with these advertising partners.
In that, a step beyond that, in that we actually are doing some things internally. Now we've realized rental actually increases the size of the industry and increases the amount of customers who are playing in this industry. So one of the things we're really passionate about at Rent the Runway is helping other brands and other retailers power rental for themselves. So we've spent the last 9 years building out the technology and the logistical processes, as you saw, to power rental. But we could also do this on behalf of other companies. And I think that an internet in the future where you go to a product page and you see the ability to buy it and the ability to try it is just that much more powerful, because the customer is really given the choice as to how she wants to interact with that product. So that's one thing we're doing. Another thing we're doing is we're using our data to help designers experiment with things outside of their traditional business. So designers have come to us and said, hey, you know, I'm really in the dress business, but I want to test sportswear. Can you give me data on what customers are wearing and what they want, and that'll inform a new collection for me that, if successful, I can go out and sell to 1 million other partners. So those things are really exciting because they're really helping to take this concept of rental forward.
which to me is really, it's fascinating to see that kind of happen right before our eyes. So it's pretty interesting.
I think what's so interesting is when you think about the shared economy, people in every industry were scared initially. You have someone like Taylor Swift, who initially did not want any of her music up on Spotify. And now with her latest album, she actually released it on Spotify. because she saw that the traction and the marketing of putting it up on that platform would bring exposure to millions of people who would then become fans. It's the exact same thing with rental. Because the friction of trial is so low, we can get millions of people to understand and fall in love with new brands and new fashion, and then they will go out and buy it. Because the closet of the future, while rental is a huge component of it, she's still going to want some items that she wakes up and has in her
Retailers
closet.
in the room to rethink their business and to be able to make it more expansive using this whole notion of whether it be rental, whether it be a shared economy type of view, to be able to expand their business. What would you tell them they ought to be thinking
We're
about?
focused too much on stores closing. The reality is stores are closing. 7,000 stores closed in the US this past year, and more stores will close in 2018. But as opposed to focus on the channels changing, all that means is that people are buying more online and more on mobile, and that you have to provide a very different experience for them. If most, over 70% of our traffic at Rent the Runway is happening on mobile, and I believe that will be closer to 90% this year. So that means an inherently different experience than one when she's walking into a physical environment. So I think that every company needs to double down on, if you have a small screen, and if, yes, she's checking Facebook and Instagram 26 times a day as well, how are you going to provide her an experience on her phone that is as engaging and as convenient and as fun as it might have been going into the physical
Holiday
store?
season, 74% of all the conversions we at Facebook can track happened on a mobile device. 74. And I think in the end it's all about people, and rethinking the entire business with a people lens makes you reinventing your business to be mobile first.
So folks, we're at the end of our time.